Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. We have our third of the 4 Louisiana teams that I'll be covering for this season in college football. I've already covered Louisiana Monroe. I will be attending that game. They're playing against St. Francis, the Red Storm, on this Thursday the 28th, for the fact that this is actually game week for all of these teams. I've also done Lafayette, who will be playing Rice this week. I'll try to do a little bit of a early preview on that earlier in the week. And now we get to a point where we have Tulane. At this point, Tulane in 2024 was 9-5 on the season. And overall, this season was supposed to be a transition year for the fact that Michael Pratt ran out of eligibility, and the next quarterback in line was not the one to replace Pratt whenever he was injured last in the 2023 season. Or it could have been Ty Thompson, who transferred in from Oregon to be that next quarterback to be. Instead, ended up being redshirt freshman Darian Mensah, who actually turned out really well for the team last year. He was 66% completion percentage for 23 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Tulane ended up being 0-3 against Power 4 opponents last season whenever they played Kansas State, Oklahoma, and Florida in the bowl game. The latter being without both Darian Mensah, who transferred to Duke, and their top returning player on offense from the year before in Mekhi Hughes, who had 1,400 yards rushing after having over 1,000 yards in his freshman season, and then unfortunately transferred to Oregon. But the story of this offseason really for Tulane has been the transfer portal amongst really everyone else in the group of 5, for the fact that they lost 27 players through the transfer portal and brought in 34. But for the ones that they lost, Mekhi Hughes to Oregon, Darian Mensah, as I said, to Duke, Alex Bowman, who had the catch against USC in the Cotton Bowl in 2023 to give them that victory, their backup quarterback in Kai Horton. Then you had Sidney Banasaur, wide receiver, Shadi Clayton Johnson, one of their backup running backs. They had Trey Cornish going to Central Michigan. They had backup tight ends in Joshua Gaines in New Mexico State, another backup tight end in Guisan Myrtle to Florida A&M, former LSU recruit Kai Preen that went to Southeastern. Interior lineman Gabe Fortson went to Arkansas State. Jude McCoskey went to Purdue, offensive tackle. That's only offense. You had both a kicker and a punter transferred to Power 4 teams. Ethan Head to West Virginia and Will Carroll to UCLA. Then I could just go through the list on defense as well. Parker Peterson, D lineman, to Wisconsin. Rayshawn Pleasant, cornerback, went to Auburn. Multiple edge rushers in Matthew Fobbs-White to Baylor, and another to Baylor, one that was on the spring squad that second coach John Summerall was trying to hype up to be able to be more of a leadership presence in Adonis Freelo. He also transferred to Baylor. All of this, 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, 3 offensive linemen, 4 D tackles, 3 D ends, 3 linebackers, 2 corners, 1 defensive back, 1 kicker, 1 punter. So much of this team's depth last year and starters are gone. Then on the same way, they brought in 34 members for this staff, including 5 quarterbacks.
Road trip. Who's in? No, not you, Seamus. Ah, poo.
You had the competition that was thought to be 4 quarterbacks between Brendan Sullivan, transferring from Iowa, Donovan Leary, Illinois, Caden Samanza from Ball State, and then TJ Finley from LSU and Texas State, amongst so many others, it feels like. And then, just like that, a 5th becomes an option whenever Finley gets suspended off of stealing a vehicle. Here comes in Jake Retzlaff from BYU. Starting off with the ones that were in here since spring practice. Brendan Sullivan, 475 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks on limited game duty. More of a mobile quarterback to replace the Ty Thompson production that's going to be moving to tight end. Then you have Donovan Leary, younger brother of Devin Leary, who was at NC State, multi-year quarterback for NC. Not much stats on his line. More than likely, more of a potential quarterback after this season. Caden Samanza, he transferred in from Ball State, had 2,900 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. QBR was just middle of the road. Then you go to BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff was going to be suspended from BYU for violating their code of conduct, which was going to suspend him 7 games, but instead he decided to withdraw from the program because BYU was not allowing him to transfer. And then he goes to biggest Jewish communities in college with the Tulane Green Wave. Last year at BYU, 58% completion percentage, over 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks. They had 4 losses on the season, but they started off real strong and thought to be one of the favorites coming into this season to making the playoff. Likely going to be the favorite for Tulane to win the position, and has given analysts hype to where they could potentially beat some of these Power 5 opponents that they struggled to do last year and actually make the playoff this year. Now, going on to other positions with their transfers coming in and their returning starters. You have Arnold Barnes, 87 carries, 402 yards, their second leading rusher last season. All of this production here is going to be set to replace Mekhi Hughes with over 1,400 yards going to Oregon. Maurice Turner transfers in from Louisville after 2 years getting over 60 carries on the season. His production dips in more than half. So he transfers. Zubair Mobley, after 1 season with nearly 500 yards rushing, also transfers in, which ends up joining 5th string running back from last year, Jamario McClure. To try to replace the receiving production from last year, 1,000-yard receiver in Mario Williams and a couple more receivers and tight ends that contributed over 2,000 yards of that passing production, they bring in Omarion Hayes from Florida Atlantic, 39 receptions, 590 yards, 3 touchdowns. Anthony Brown-Stevens, 5 receptions, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns at Kentucky. Trey Shackelford, 10 receptions, 144 yards from Washington State. Then you had Jimmy Callaway, 20 receptions, 242 yards, no touchdowns, but from Louisville. And then you also included a few more tight ends with less production, but also in other programs. LaRon Husband from Maryland, Justin Reed from Southern Miss, hoping to replicate the production and the success that they had through the air, even though it was actually only 11th in the conference. Now, defensively, for a team that had 35 sacks in 2024, which was second in the American, they lost a bunch of production in their front 7. The vast majority of it being with these 5, with Matthew Fobbs-White going to Baylor with 4 sacks. Patrick Jenkins, defensive end, who is now with the Arizona Cardinals. Aiden Huntington is now with the Cleveland Browns, who had 4 sacks. Tyler Grubbs, 3 sacks at the linebacker position. And interior lineman Parker Peterson, 2.5 sacks going to the Wisconsin Badgers. Even with all that lost production, they still have 4 players on defense that are first team All-American Conference players. Mo Westmoreland, who had 7.5 sacks on the season last year as an edge rusher. Sam Howard, middle linebacker, 2.5 sacks and 34 total tackles with an interception. Cameron Hamilton from the DN position, 4.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And Slim Despani, that name I'm still probably going to get long until I actually see it in person, 41 total tackles and 2 passes defended. Now, the Green Wave's out-of-conference opponents pulls no punches this year, as they could not win a Power 4 conference game last year. They went 0-3 on all of their chances. This year, they get 3 chances in the regular season before you even count for whatever bowl game they end up being in. They start the season home against Northwestern. Then they get a couple weeks later against Duke, both of those being home games, and then they get a road game against Ole Miss, which they played Ole Miss at home a couple years back, where if Michael Pratt doesn't get hurt, they actually have a decent shot to winning that game. And it was competitive till the very end of it. But in order to get to the goals that they're wanting as a team, they're going to need a bunch of these new plays. They're going to need a bunch of these new faces to be able to show their potential and prove that they can get a large portion of that rushing production, which was only below the military schools in the American and Army and Navy. But with that all being said, once they get through those first 5 games of the season before that first bye week, you'll have a clear idea on how well this team is going to pursue through the rest of the season and how relevant they're going to be in this playoff push potentially. Like, they should win their back-to-back home games with East Carolina. Expect them to get to make up for the conference loss against Army of last year. Yes, that's Texas San Antonio game on the road and the Memphis game on the road is going to be tough down the stretch. But once you get through those Power 5 opponents, you'll have a good idea on how good this team's going to be. But with that all being said, if this team could end up either 10-2 or 11-1 with this non-conference schedule, they have a good shot of being that group of 5 team that makes the playoff. We'll have to see how all of these revolving pieces end up coming along, especially even with the fact that they have only 2 players returning from their offense and the entire right side of the line is completely new. We'll have to see how that whole thing progresses, and we'll have to see which quarterback ends up being the starter, even though Retzlaff is the clear favorite. But with that all being said, thank y'all for watching. There's going to be at least one more coming in, previewing the main regular season and recapping last year's season with LSU. It's going to be a little bit different for the fact that a lot of people know the issues that LSU had been able to go through, but you'll see that in the next video. But thank y'all for watching. Please like and subscribe off of it. If you want to see more of this content, please comment below if there's anything else you want to see differently. If there's anything you want to say off of this, any content you would be interested on hearing more of, please let me know. I will be attending both this game and the Lafayette game on Saturday, and I'll also be attending the Louisiana Monroe game on Thursday and getting some sort of recap for each of those games once those games conclude. But yeah, once again, thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.